Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take a whole stack of sources, could be articles, research papers, maybe even your own notes, and we really boil them down. We pull out the most important bits, the key insights. Think of us as your shortcut to getting properly informed. You get the surprising facts, maybe a bit of humor, enough to keep you hooked. Today, we're plunging into a really captivating topic, sometimes a bit chilling, actually. It's this enduring human fascination with true crime, with mysteries, and the paranormal. We've gathered a pretty rich collection of research, storytelling too, that spans, millennia really. Everything from the earliest whispers of restless spirits right up to modern digital urban legends.
Right. And our mission for you today is to properly unpack why. Why do these narratives grab us so intensely? How have they shifted and changed through history? And maybe most importantly, what do they tell us about, our own psychology and society as a whole? We'll dig into the ancient roots, look at the psychological side, the cultural relevance, and we won't shy away from the controversies either, the ethical stuff that comes up with these kinds of stories.
Okay, so settle in, get comfortable, because we're about to explore those shadows, the unexplained bits, and the very, very human reasons why we just can't seem to stop looking for what might be lurking just out of sight. So let's kick things off right at the beginning. How far back does this fascination actually go? I mean, is it just a modern media thing, or is this something like really ancient woven into us?
It's fundamental. Absolutely. It's not new at all. Our connection to the paranormal, you could say, is as old as civilization itself. When you really dig into the history, the evidence is pretty compelling, going back thousands of years. For instance, some of the earliest writing we have, Mesopotamian demonology tablets.
Wow, okay. How old are we talking?
We're talking circa 2000 BCE, astonishingly old. And these weren't just, abstract thoughts. They vividly describe beliefs in restless spirits, often nasty ones. And they detail rituals, incantations, ways to ward them off, or sometimes even appease them. It shows this really practical day-to-day belief system about the unseen world.
That's incredible. So way before structured religions we might recognize today, people were already grappling with ghosts, essentially, with things lingering after death.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just in Mesopotamia. Look at ancient Egypt. Their necromancy rituals, really intricate, deeply spiritual stuff. They also show this profound early engagement with spirits. This idea of interacting with the dead, maybe getting wisdom, maybe even trying to influence things. Then, fast forward a bit, you get to the Greeks and Romans. Their writers documented accounts that sound incredibly like modern ghost sightings. One of the earliest really vivid case files, you could call it, comes from Pliny the Younger.
Pliny the Younger, right, 1st century CE.
That's the one. He wrote this very specific, quite chilling story about a ghost in Athens. Rattling chains, haunted house, the whole deal, drove people away. And the important thing is, this wasn't just some vague folktale. It was treated like a detailed account, almost like a report. People were trying to document this stuff, make sense of it, even back then.
Okay, so this ancient impulse is there, this need to acknowledge, maybe interact with the unexplained. But how did that morph? How did it go from, ancient texts and maybe personal belief to something more public, more performative? Because the 19th century seems like a real turning point. Suddenly it's parlor games and big public spectacles.
That's a really crucial shift. And the 19th century is fascinating because you have this massive boom in mysticism, in the paranormal, happening right alongside the Industrial Revolution.
Kind of counterintuitive, isn't it? Science marching forward, but people are looking for ghosts.
Exactly. It's a paradox. As science and tech were making huge leaps, there was this intense, almost desperate yearning for the spiritual, for proof of something beyond the material world, connection with the unknown. And that societal craving, that hunger, it led straight into what we call the Victorian spiritualism boom. It properly exploded onto the scene around 1848. And it started with the Fox sisters, up in upstate New York. 3 young girls, Maggie, Kate, Leah, claiming they could talk to spirits through these mysterious rappings, knocks and taps.
Right, the rappings. I've heard about them. It started small, though, didn't it? In their house.
It did, in their little home. But the story just caught fire. Remember, this was post-Civil War America too, a time of immense grief and loss. People were desperate for contact with lost loved ones, so this story spread like wildfire, first across America, then Europe. It basically ignited the whole spiritualist movement.
So it wasn't just a little fad then, this was a genuine cultural thing.
Oh, absolutely massive. Seances became incredibly popular. You picture these dimly lit Victorian drawing rooms, everyone leaning in, hushed anticipation. People from all walks of life attended, working class folks, intellectuals, even famous names like Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes, everyone hoping for a message.
And wasn't there some weird photography involved too? Ectoplasm?
Yes. Ectoplasm photography became this bizarre but widespread craze. Mediums claimed they could physically extrude this spiritual substance, ectoplasm, from their bodies, and then you get these photos with eerie, sort of translucent, ghostly figures appearing next to the living people.
Which was mostly faked, presumably.
Oh, a lot of it involved very clever trickery. Often quite simple stuff, really. Double exposures on the photo plates, maybe bits of cheesecloth or egg whites manipulated to look like, well, spirit goo. But it was effective. And you also had spirit boards becoming common, the precursors to the Ouija board we know today, tools for talking to the other side. But the crucial thing is, this stuff moved out of private homes and into the public sphere. Newspapers were full of its stories, testimonies, arguments, exposés. It became this huge cultural phenomenon, debated everywhere.
Wow. So while people are trying to chat with ghosts and seances, something else dark and mysterious is also grabbing the public's attention: true crime. It feels like they kind of rose together.
They absolutely did. In parallel with spiritualism, you have the birth of modern mass journalism in the late 19th century, and that just catapulted true crime into being a cultural staple. Before mass newspapers, crime stories were maybe local gossip, or put it on rough little sheets called broadsides. But now, real murders could be sensationalized, packaged up, and delivered daily to a huge audience. It turned crime into a form of, well, entertainment.
That's where things like the Penny Dreadfuls come in, right?
Exactly. Penny Dreadfuls, cheap, lurid little publications, often just a few pages, dripping with gruesome details about real crimes, sometimes fictional horror, too. Readers could get this glimpse into terror and intrigue for just a penny. Like Pulp Fiction, but with this horrifying real-world edge.
You can see the appeal, can't you? A cheap thrill, a look into the dark side.
Definitely. But then came the Jack the Ripper case, London, 1888. That was absolutely pivotal. It wasn't just another murder story, however gruesome. It combined this brutal, unexplained violence with the terrifying mystery of a killer who was never identified, just vanished.
And that anonymity, that lack of resolution, that's key, isn't it?
It's absolutely key. The fact he was never caught, the baffling nature of the crimes, the chilling unknown had embedded true crime deep in the popular consciousness like never before. It created this template we still see today. The Unsolved case, the terrifying unknown figure, the obsessive public speculation. Who could it be? That collective dread just resonated.
It really does sound like a perfect storm brewing there. You've got these ancient beliefs bubbling up, you've got public spectacle becoming a thing, and then you have real-life, terrifying mysteries hitting the headlines. And some places almost became characters themselves in these stories, didn't they? Synonymous with this stuff.
That's a great way to put it. Yes, certain locations really cemented their place in these evolving myths. They became iconic symbols of the unexplained, drawing people in for generations. Think about the Winchester Mystery House out in California.
Oh yeah, the house that never stopped being built.
That's the one. The legend goes that Sarah Winchester, widow of the rifle guy, was haunted by the spirits of people killed by Winchester rifles. So, to appease them or confuse them, she just kept building onto her mansion for like 38 years straight. Staircases to nowhere, doors opening onto walls.
Utterly bizarre.
It's this huge physical manifestation of fear and superstition, a house literally built from anxiety. And it's still a massive tourist attraction today. People want to feel that weird energy.
And then the big one from the 70s, Amityville. That really blurred the lines between a horrific true crime and a potential haunting.
Exactly, the Amityville Horror House. It became infamous after a truly terrible family murder in 1974. Ronald DeFeo Jr. killed 6 family members there. Then about a year later, the Lutz family moves in. They lasted just 28 days before fleeing, claiming they were tormented by terrifying paranormal events.
And that story just exploded. Books, movies.
It did. So you have this real awful tragedy and then layer upon layer of folklore, speculation, sensationalized accounts built on top of it. It created this enduring myth that people still debate and visit today. It's a powerful example of how real human tragedy can become this fertile ground for chilling legends. Fact and terrifying fiction just get completely tangled up.
It's fascinating how these threads weave together. So just to give everyone listening a quick sense of this timeline, this unfolding history of our fascination, we can pinpoint some key moments like way back 2000 BCE. Those Sumerian tablets are our earliest written clues about spirit beliefs. Then 1st century CE, Pliny the Younger's letter about the ghost in Athens feels almost like an early paranormal investigation report. Jump forward to 1848, the Fox sisters and their rappings kick off the whole spiritualism movement, bringing this stuff into the mainstream. Then 1888, Jack the Ripper in London. True crime becomes this enduring, terrifying public mystery. Then 1974, the Amityville murders happen, setting the stage for one of the most famous and disputed hauntings haunting stories ever. In 1977, 1979, the Enfield Poltergeist case in London. Highly documented, but still fiercely debated. Was it real? Was it faked? Was it a mix? Okay, the historical sweep is, well, it's genuinely captivating. But it leads straight to the big question, why? Why do we seek this stuff out? Fear, the unexplained, what's going on in our heads, what makes us drawn to it?
It is the crucial question, isn't it? And psychologists have some really compelling ideas. A lot of it seems linked back to, believe it or not, primal survival instincts. It connects to something called the brain's hyperactive agency detection device, HADD for short.
Hyperactive agency detection device. Okay, sounds technical. What does that mean in practice?
Basically, HADD is an evolutionary leftover. It evolved to help our ancestors quickly spot potential threats in ambiguous situations. Think about hearing a twig snap in the dark woods. From a survival perspective, it's much safer to assume that sound was made by something, an agent, a predator, maybe even a spirit, than to dismiss it as just the wind.
Better safe than sorry, essentially. Assume agency, assume danger.
Precisely. Mistake wind for a lion, you just look jumpy. Mistake a lion for wind. Well, you don't make that mistake twice. So this system, this bias towards detecting agency, even in randomness, is still active in us. It's why we see faces in clouds, hear whispers in static, or jump when a floorboard creaks. Our brain is primed to look for intention, for a cause, even if it defaults to the supernatural when no obvious physical cause is there.
Okay, so that explains maybe the jump scares, the spooky feelings, but it feels like there's more to it, especially with true crime. It's not just about immediate threat detection, is it? It feels deeper, maybe even therapeutic?
You're absolutely right. It goes beyond just that primal HADD response. Studies show a really specific draw, especially for women when it comes to true crime. Many people, and women report this more often, consume true crime for what you could call survival lessons.
Survival lessons, how so?
It acts like a safe, kind of vicarious rehearsal for worst-case scenarios. By engaging with these stories, you, the listener, can sort of mentally prepare. You might identify potential dangers, learn about predatory behaviors, understand warning signs. It's a way to confront those fears in a controlled environment, which can actually feel quite empowering. It gives a sense of preparation.
Right, learning what not to do or what to look out for.
Exactly. And this ties into something called terror management theory from social psychology. It's a complex idea, but essentially it suggests that reminding ourselves of mortality, confronting death through these stories, can paradoxically help us feel more in control of our own lives. By looking death and danger in the face, even through a podcast or a documentary, we're kind of asserting our own vitality, managing that deep existential anxiety about our own end. It's a coping mechanism, really.
Wow, so it's personal, it's adaptive, maybe even coping. But it's also really social, isn't it? These stories seem to bring people together. We love to share them.
Oh, definitely. Sociologists really emphasize this communal aspect. These paranormal tales, these mysteries, they function a lot like ancient myths told around a campfire. They build social bonds. When we share these stories, we're participating in a shared emotional experience. We bond over the thrill, the fear, the shivers down the spine, even the intellectual puzzle of trying to figure it out.
You see that with ghost tours, right? Strangers getting spooked together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Local ghost tours are a perfect example. Or think about the huge online communities like on Reddit, dedicated to mysteries or unsolved cases. People congregate there, share theories, argue evidence. Even podcasts like this one create a kind of community among listeners, a shared space for curiosity, belief, debate, skepticism. It's about finding your tribe, people who share that fascination with what lies beneath the surface.
And speaking of online, the digital age must have completely turbocharged how these stories spread and change. It feels like things move so much faster now.
You've hit on a really critical point there. Technology, especially social media, has amplified these ancient human impulses in ways we're still trying to understand. Social platforms allow these incredibly specific belief bubbles or echo chambers to form. You can find entire subreddits, for instance, where people obsessively debate tiny pieces of evidence for hauntings or UFOs. These spaces reinforce niche views, creating these really invested communities of believers or amateur sleuths.
And things like YouTube, that seems like a hotbed for scary stuff.
Absolutely. YouTube horror channels thrive on what some call a reaction economy of fear. Creators film themselves reacting genuinely or maybe performatively to scary videos or games. And the audience engages not just with the spooky content, but with the shared experience of watching someone else be scared. It's meta-fear. And urban legends, they go viral instantly now. Think Slender Man started as an internet meme, a creepypasta, and became this global bogeyman.
Right, that was purely digital at first.
Exactly. Or more recently, you see TikTok series about supposedly haunted dolls. or people documenting strange occurrences in their homes. Folklore is evolving in real time, globally, at lightning speed. It's dynamic, constantly mutating.
It's undeniable that these fascinations are huge right now. Bigger than ever, maybe. They're all over pop culture. So what does that look like today? Where are we seeing this massive appetite play out?
It's everywhere, honestly. The appetite seems bottomless. On TV, you have massively popular paranormal reality shows. Ghost Adventures is a big one. Very theatrical, high-energy investigations. Then you also get these really sophisticated, critically acclaimed fictional series. Things like The Haunting of Hill House or Midnight Mass. They cleverly weave together real human drama with supernatural horror, tapping into deep fears and keeping us hooked.
And true crime. I mean, that genre has just exploded, hasn't it? It feels like it dominates podcast charts.
Completely. True crime has morphed into this multi-billion-dollar podcast industry. It's a dominant force in media now. Shows like Serial weren't just hits. They fundamentally changed how millions consume audio storytelling.
Right, that serialized investigation format really caught on.
It did. And then you have shows like My Favorite Murder, which built this enormous, really passionate community around discussing these cases, often with a mix of empathy and sometimes dark humor. This genre just taps into that deep need to understand the why behind terrible acts, the psychology, the mystery, and maybe sometimes seeking a sense of justice, even if it's just vicariously through the story.
Now, here's something really interesting, maybe a bit unsettling, that our sources highlighted. There seems to be a parallel drawn between this fascination with mysteries and something bigger, something societal. It's not just entertainment, is it?
This is a really profound point from the research, and yeah, maybe a bit unsettling. The sources suggest that the mindset involved in seeking hidden truths in the paranormal can mirror the rise of conspiratorial thinking in society more broadly.
How so? What's the connection?
Both often stem from a deep distrust of mainstream explanations or official narratives. Think about a dedicated ghost hunter. They might meticulously look for tiny anomalies, bits of evidence that science dismisses, often believing there's a cover-up or that scientists are just blind to it. Now, compare that to, say, followers of conspiracy theories like QAnon. They also pore over cryptic clues, reject established facts, believe mainstream sources are lying, and feel they're uncovering a hidden, suppressed truth.
So it's less about what they believe ghosts versus conspiracies and more about the way they believe, the pattern of seeking hidden meaning and distrusting the official story.
Exactly. It's that underlying impulse, the belief that there's always more than meets the eye, that the surface reality is a deception and true understanding comes from digging beneath, finding what's really going on. And this overlap worries sociologists because it shows how our natural appetite for mystery, for finding hidden connections which can be fun and harmless, can potentially slide into something more problematic, like widespread paranoia or rejection of verifiable facts and scientific consensus.
That is a bit chilling, the idea that the same mental pathways could be involved.
It's about pattern recognition and how skepticism towards one thing, say, the supernatural, can sometimes morph into a pervasive skepticism towards everything, making people vulnerable to misinformation. The lure of the secret truth is powerful.
Okay, stepping away from the potential societal downsides for a moment. These fascinations also have a very real, very tangible impact on local economies, right? People actually travel and spend money because of ghosts.
Oh, absolutely. The economic impact is significant. Haunted tourism is a serious industry, generating millions for towns and cities that lean into their spooky reputations.
Like Salem, Massachusetts.
Salem is a prime example, with its witch trial history. Or Edinburgh in Scotland, with its gruesome past and famous vaults. They thrive on ghost tours, haunted attractions, festivals, merchandise. It boosts local economies massively.
Creates jobs, keeps historic places relevant.
Exactly. And beyond specific locations, the whole paranormal investigation scene has become its own subculture. There are conventions, people buy specialized gear, EMF meters, spirit boxes, that kind of thing. There are dedicated online communities, TV shows, merchandise. It shows just how commercially viable this deep human curiosity is. It turns fascination directly into dollars and cents.
Okay, so we clearly love these stories. We spend money on them. They shape communities. But let's circle back to that tricky question. How much of it is actually true? How much of what we think we know about famous paranormal cases holds up? Our sources dive into some big controversies here.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting and often quite messy. How much is real versus, well, misinterpretation or outright fabrication? Yeah. Many of the most famous cases are intensely debated. Take the Enfield Poltergeist, London, late 70s.
Yeah.
It's one of the most documented poltergeist cases ever, but also one of the most contested.
Right, that's the one with the kids, furniture moving.
That's it. There were reports, even recordings, of genuinely unsettling stuff, furniture moving on its own, objects being thrown, weird voices. Reputable investigators witnessed things they couldn't explain. However, some skeptics, and even some of the investigators involved at the time, reported catching the Hodgson sisters, the young girls at the heart of it, faking things, bending spoons, making noises themselves.
Ah, okay. So there was definite trickery involved, even if other things seemed real.
Exactly. There's evidence of fakery. Yet despite that, true believers argue passionately that not everything could have been faked. They point to phenomena that seemed impossible for the girls to stage. So the debate rages on. It really highlights how powerful belief can be, even when faced with contradictory evidence. People hold on to the mystery.
Again, Amityville, you mentioned that earlier. Heavily disputed too, right?
Very heavily. The Lutz family story of demonic voices, slime oozing from walls, swarms of flies, became this huge cultural phenomenon through the book and movies. But skeptics point to loads of inconsistencies in their accounts. And later on, some people involved in crafting the narrative admitted to exaggeration, maybe even outright invention, for dramatic effect.
It's amazing how the story itself can become more potent than the facts, isn't it?
It really is. The Amityville story, The Haunting, is arguably far more culturally powerful and influential today than the actual horrific murders that happened there before the Lutzes moved in. The compelling narrative, the scary tale, has almost overshadowed the real tragedy. It just shows the incredible power of myth-making and our hunger for a good, chilling story. These cases remind us how easily we can be swayed, especially when fear and curiosity are involved.
It's incredible how our own minds can play tricks too, right? Especially with visual stuff, like those old spirit photos from the Victorian era, or even just seeing a face in your toast.
Absolutely. Our brains are pattern-finding machines. And sometimes they find patterns where none actually exist. Those classic spirit photos, the blurry, eerie images with ghostly figures next to living people, they're often perfect examples of pareidolia.
Pareidolia, that's a term for seeing meaningful shapes in random things.
Exactly. Seeing animals in clouds, the man in the moon, a face on Mars, hearing messages in backward music. Our brain is constantly trying to make sense of incoming data, and it often defaults to familiar patterns, like faces, even if it's just random noise or light and shadow.
So it's our brain imposing order, creating meaning where there isn't any.
Pretty much. And historically, especially during that spiritualism boom, photographers knew this, they often used simple but effective tricks to deliberately create ghostly figures, and they charged money for it.
Like double exposures.
Double exposure was a common one. Expose the photographic plate once with the paying customer, then again, maybe fainter, with someone else, maybe draped in a sheet, to create that translucent, spectral look. They knew people wanted to believe, especially given the grief of the era and how new and mysterious photography itself still was. It was a clever business, blending illusion, timing, and the human desire to connect with the beyond.
Okay, so if it's not always real ghosts, and sometimes it's hoaxes or our brains playing tricks, what do different experts actually think is going on? Do scientists, parapsychologists, folklorists all see these things the same way? Or are their takes completely different?
Oh, their interpretations are often wildly different, offering unique lenses on the same phenomena. On one side, you have the mainstream skeptics, often psychologists or professional debunkers. People like Richard Wiseman, a psychologist who used to be a magician. He argues many hauntings can be explained by mundane factors, things we don't immediately notice.
Like what kind of things?
Well, suggestion is a big one. If you go into a place expecting it to be haunted, you're more likely to interpret ambiguous events that way. Cold spots could just be drafts, and infrasound, low-frequency sound waves below human hearing range. We can't hear it, but studies suggest it can cause feelings of unease, anxiety, even a sense of presence. That creepy feeling might just be a vibration.
Wow, okay, so the feeling of dread could literally just be a low hum you can't hear. That's surprisingly mundane for something so spooky.
It can be. And it's powerful because it's subconscious. Then you have people like Joe Nickel, a professional paranormal investigator known for meticulous debunking. He approaches cases like a detective, looking for rational explanations. He's famous for recreating supposed ghostly events using ordinary methods, showing how easily the seemingly inexplicable can have a normal cause.
Right, so that's the skeptical scientific angle.
Yeah.
What about parapsychologists? They're actually trying to study this stuff, right?
They are. Parapsychologists are researchers specifically investigating potential psychic phenomena, what they call a VIME. People like William Roll did extensive studies on poltergeists, often linking them to a living agent, usually an adolescent, suggesting maybe psychokinesis rather than spirits. And institutions like the Rhine Research Center still conduct controlled lab experiments trying to test things like ESP telepathy, clairvoyance, or psychokinesis, moving objects with the mind.
But those results are controversial, aren't they? Within science, generally.
Highly controversial.
Yeah.
The big challenge for parapsychology has always been getting consistent, repeatable results that satisfy the broader scientific community. The standards of evidence are incredibly high, and psi research often struggles to meet them, leading to ongoing debates about methodology and interpretation.
Okay. And then there's a totally different view. Folklorists. They're not trying to prove or disprove scientifically, are they? They're looking at the stories themselves.
Exactly. Folklorists offer this crucial third perspective. They see ghost stories, urban legends, mystery tales, not as literal truths to be tested, but as a dynamic living form of modern myth-making. Their focus is on how these stories function in society. How are they told? How do they change? What anxieties do they reflect?
So, like how a modern story about a haunted Alexa might reflect fears about AI.
Precisely. Current urban legends about creepy AI, haunted technology, or digital ghosts, they see these as reflections of very contemporary anxieties about artificial intelligence, loss of privacy, the uncanny nature of algorithms. It shows how our ancient human need to tell stories about the unknown adapts. The fears are timeless, but the forms they take mirror our current technological and social landscape. For a folklorist, whether the ghost is real is less important than the fact that the story is real and powerful in its cultural impact.
That makes sense. So it's like our collective fears and narratives just evolve along with everything else. The underlying need persists, but the expression changes. Okay, we've looked at the history, the psychology, but how does this play out globally? Are ghost stories the same everywhere, or do they really change depending on the culture? Do different places have fundamentally different kinds of hauntings?
That's a great question, and the answer is they absolutely reflect unique cultural contexts. The core themes might be universal fear of death, the unknown, but the specifics are deeply rooted in local traditions, beliefs, and anxieties. Let's look beyond the usual Western examples. Consider Ekugahara Forest in Japan, the so-called suicide forest.
Right, a very tragic place.
Incredibly tragic.
Yeah.
And it's not typically described as haunted by, rattling chains ghosts. Instead, because it's tragically known for a high number of suicides, many visitors report feeling this profound sense of oppression, of lingering sadness, a heavy presence. It shows how intense human suffering, real-world tragedy, can almost soak into a place, creating an atmosphere that feels haunted, even without specific ghostly figures. It's a haunting born of collective sorrow.
That's a really powerful idea. Less a spirit, more an emotional echo. What about somewhere like the Myrtles Plantation in the US? That's famous for a specific ghost photo, isn't it?
It is. Myrtles Plantation is widely known for the alleged ghost photo of Chloe, supposedly an enslaved woman who haunts the grounds after being hanged for poisoning family members. That story and the photo are huge draws for their ghost tours. But here's the thing. Historians have widely questioned the actual historical basis of the Chloe legend. There's little or no evidence she existed as described, or that the events happened that way.
So the story persists, even if the history is shaky.
Exactly. It highlights how a compelling, chilling narrative can take root and become incredibly powerful, driving tourism and becoming part of local identity, even when the historical facts are debated or disproven. The story becomes its own reality in a way.
Okay, so places get imbued with meaning, real or legendary. But what about the types of ghosts or spirits themselves? How do they differ culture to culture?
The specifics are fascinatingly diverse. In Asia, especially Japan, you have yurei. The typical image is often a figure in a white burial kimono, long black hair, maybe missing feet. This directly reflects Shinto and Buddhist funerary traditions and beliefs about restless spirits, particularly those who died violently or without proper rites. And modern Japanese urban legends like Kuchisake Onna, the slit-mouthed woman who asks victims if they think she's beautiful.
Oh yeah, creepy.
Terrifying. And folklorists see her as reflecting modern anxieties, fear of strangers in cities, perhaps anxieties about appearance, the potential danger lurking behind a seemingly innocent question. Old fears in new masks.
In Latin America, La Llorona is huge there, right?
Immense. La Llorona, the weeping woman, is this incredibly pervasive figure across Mexico, Central America, the U.S. Southwest. The core story is usually a woman who drowned her children and now wanders waterways, weeping and searching for them. And crucially, she functions as a cautionary tale. Mothers use the legend to warn kids. Don't go near the river after dark or La Llorona will get you. It directly links the myth to real-world danger and parental anxieties, reinforcing social norms.
Wow, a very direct social function. What about the Middle East? Different entities there.
Yes, in many parts of the Middle East, belief in jinn is very strong. These aren't typically human ghosts, but supernatural beings made of smokeless fire. They can be good or bad, can possess people, grant wishes, play tricks. So many haunted places in the region might be explained as being inhabited by jinn rather than the spirit of a deceased person. It reflects a different cosmology, a different understanding of the unseen world derived from Islamic tradition.
And finally, how has Western secularization changed things for us?
Well, in increasingly secular Western societies, ghost stories and the paranormal have largely shifted focus. While belief certainly still exists, the dominant cultural function has moved from genuine spiritual threat or religious phenomenon towards entertainment. Think about the massive commercialization of Halloween, horror movies being a blockbuster genre, escape rooms with spooky themes, haunted house attractions. We've largely commodified fear for fun.
Sure.
The thrill remains, but the deep-seated spiritual dread is often replaced by recreational fright.
Okay, so we've seen how deep this runs, how varied it is, how it impacts culture and even economies. But let's look at the bottom line. What's the overall impact? Is our fascination with this stuff ultimately good, bad, or just complicated?
It's definitely complicated. Like most powerful human impulses, it's a double-edged sword. There are clear strengths and benefits, but also definite weaknesses and dangers. On the plus side, these stories are incredible fuel for the imagination. They enrich our culture, give us narratives that explore life, death, morality, things beyond the mundane.
And they definitely create connections, like we talked about.
Absolutely. They offer communal bonding. Sharing a scary story, discussing a mystery, it builds connections, creates shared experiences, provides harmless thrills. That's valuable. And psychologically, as we discussed, they offer a safe way to process big fears, death, danger, the unknown. Confronting them indirectly can be cathartic, even empowering.
And maybe it even makes us sharper thinkers, questioning things.
It certainly can. Engaging with mysteries, especially paranormal claims, can really encourage critical thinking. It pushes you to ask questions, evaluate evidence, try to separate fact from fiction. Those are vital skills. Plus, the economic benefits we mentioned for places like Salem are real, and it fuels huge creative industries: film, books, games, podcasts, providing jobs and entertainment. Lots of positives.
Okay, but there has to be a downside. Especially with true crime where real victims are involved, it feels like there's an ethical minefield there.
There absolutely is. And this gets to the weaknesses and dangers. It raises that crucial question. How do we engage responsibly? A major risk is blurring fact and fiction. When sensationalism takes over or claims aren't critically examined, it can feed into that distrust of objective reality we talked about, maybe even fueling conspiracy thinking.
And the human cost. The families of victims in true crime cases.
Exactly. That's a huge ethical concern. There's a real danger of exploiting real tragedy purely for entertainment or profit. Victims' families often speak out against the sensationalizing of their trauma, feeling re-victimized by it all. It's a very delicate balance. Also, focusing too much on individual spooky stories or sensational crimes might distract us from looking at bigger systemic issues. Why does certain violence happen? What societal factors are at play? We might miss the forest for the trees.
And could consuming too much of it make us numb? Less empathetic?
That's a definite risk. Desensitization to real violence and suffering is a concern when it's packaged as entertainment. It could potentially diminish empathy over time. The whole ethics of profiting from trauma is complex. And finally, pushing pseudoscience uncritically in the name of mystery can erode trust in actual science and reliable authorities. If every wild claim is treated as equally valid, it can undermine our ability to discern truth.
So, wrapping this all up, what does it ultimately mean for us? This deep dive definitely shows this isn't just a niche interest. It feels fundamental.
It really does seem fundamental. Connecting all these threads, the enduring allure of the unexplained, really tells us something profound about being human. We seem to crave a world that still holds mystery, maybe even a touch of danger, questions that don't have easy answers. In our modern age, which is so often driven by data, by rationality, by trying to explain everything, ghost stories, unsolved crimes, they keep alive that possibility that maybe, just maybe, we don't know it all, and perhaps we never will. It taps into a need for wonder, maybe even a need for something beyond the purely rational.
It's almost comforting in a weird way, isn't it? The idea that there's always more to explore, something just out of reach, keeps things interesting, keeps us curious, a testament to our need for stories.
Precisely. And looking ahead into our increasingly digital future, we're bound to see new kinds of hauntings. Maybe it'll be AI deepfakes creating digital ghosts of loved ones, or unsettling encounters in virtual reality, or algorithms that feel eerily sentient. The form will change, but that underlying human impulse to grapple with the unknown, the uncanny, that seems likely to persist. The real mystery, perhaps, for you listening is how this ancient impulse will continue to evolve in our technological world. Will it find new digital forms? Or will technology somehow satisfy that need for answers? Or maybe, just maybe, in every new dark corner we create, whether digital or physical, we'll always find a shadow that looks back, sparking that timeless flicker of fear and wonder.
Fascinating thought to end on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. It's been quite a journey through the shadows. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and maybe keep an eye out for those intriguing shadows yourself.